Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about the things that improve the customer experience at your store. Whether it's the front of the store, the back of the store, the middle, doesn't really matter. Because if people love coming to your store, they will come to you for everything they need when they need it. And they will bring their entire tribe with them, their coworkers, their family, their friends, people they randomly meet out in restaurants and places like that. I know a guy like that just meets people randomly. But basically, anybody that's in their orbit, they will bring to your store. So every week, I bring on the experts to share with you what they do or what they've done to help improve that experience. And this week is no exception. We have the lovely Jami Alexander joining us tonight. And we're going to be talking about the aftermarket versus the in-dealer. I've been in both spheres for many, many years. Jami's been in aftermarket for many years. She had a taste of the dealer world and is back in the aftermarket world. So we want to talk about some of those differences. So Jami, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Don't go beyond fifth grade because then it gets too long.
Well, I've been in the automotive industry for 28 years. Most of my experience is in the aftermarket world. I have experience, I started in parts as a delivery driver, actually. And, I've got experience. So in the parts world, I have experience as an operations manager for an on-site fleet company where we had, I have experience anywhere from small S10 pickups all the way up to 18-wheelers and hydraulic boom repair work as well. And then I started in a small, mom and pop shop. And then most recently, running multiple, I had 7 Meijer locations that I ran back in the Pacific Northwest, moved out here to South Carolina to try out the dealership world, and just quickly learned that my passion was, in the aftermarket side. So I accepted a position being the regional manager for the North and South Carolina Meijer, independently owned, that are rapidly growing. I think right now we've got 20 stores. I believe it's 20 stores between North and South Carolina and Wisconsin, and looking to expand more.
Wow. Well, congratulations. That sounds like a great opportunity for you and right in your wheelhouse.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back.
Now, I do want to give the disclaimer up front. There is an issue sometimes with the platform. LinkedIn says that it is StreamYard. StreamYard says that it is LinkedIn. So as of yet, unresolved. So there may be some comments that you make that don't get responded to. And that simply means that it didn't show up while we were live. So if you have either of our cell phone numbers or Messenger, you could send us a message if you don't get a response to your comment, because it simply means we didn't see it. So for some reason, after the show goes off the air, then it shows up. Nobody can tell me why, but so I just want to let you know that up front. So let me get to some of the comments. First one in the room is Greg Settle. Welcome, Greg. Looking forward to tonight's show. And Tony Owens, let's go. Tony, you reminded me that it's actually 46 years in the automotive business, not 45, because I forgot all about that year I spent working at Andy Covell's gas station, pumping gas with my good friend Lumpy. So I forgot about that year in my overall number. So thank you for that and bringing me back through memory lane. Nathan Williams, it won't be long now. Tony Owens says, good evening, gentlemen. Are you forgetting a certain lady? Jami is a superstar. I'm going to highlight that one because it happens to be true. I'm a big fan of Jami's myself. Russell B. Hill. Hello, Jami, Paul. Good day to you. And Greg Settle says, Tony Owens, I'm into that. Russell Hill says hello to Tony. And Tony says hello to Russell. Russell thinks you rock too, Jami.
Aw, thank you. Stronger together.
Tony Owens says, I'm going on 60. No, you're not. I saw your post. All right, so it's been a little interesting journey. We plan on doing things and we have certain intentions and expectations, and then something doesn't quite work out exactly the way we had hoped it would, and we go back to our true calling. So tell us a little bit about that without digging too deep.
Well, I was, I think for me I was at a point in my last position where I was as far up as I could go,
Yeah.
and so I was feeling a little bit professionally strangled. I was, wanting to get out and to try something new. I've spent the last, couple of years really trying to understand our industry, understand, why we're having such a hard time with retention, with, technicians and, and retaining top talent, so I've been doing a lot of, interviews all across the country, speaking with technicians, speaking with leaders. And, so this opportunity I was actually recruited. I was recruited, to come to the dealership world, and sounded pretty exciting. I was wanting to get out of the Pacific Northwest and really, came in, ready to go, but pretty early on, I realized it wasn't for me. There are drastic differences between the dealer side and the aftermarket side. And one of them being is a lot of roadblocks. A lot of roadblocks. I think that, on the aftermarket side, if I'm having a parts issue or a supplier or a vendor issue, I've got an unlimited supply chain. I've got a lot of, options that I can go
Right.
to, and people will argue that the dealership part is better and this is what we're selling. And, they want to act as though the aftermarket world doesn't have warranties. And that's the farthest from the truth. In fact, the aftermarket, a lot of times, are smart enough to fix the dealer design flaws in parts. And, working for a big chain like I work for, we have a nationwide warranty. If I fix somebody's car in Oregon and they end up in Wisconsin and that part failed or there was a problem with the workmanship, it's not a this.
Right, right.
This is part of our value. This is what we offer. They called me up and they let me know what happened, and I pay them with a credit card to get the guests back on the road and to keep the name and the image good. And so, I think that was probably one of the hardest things for me. I worked for a great group, a very great group, and I think they have, they're working towards the culture and they're working towards, getting things where they need to be. But the other thing is, when you run multiple locations in the aftermarket side, you have a bigger pool to pick from. You've got technicians that are well versed on all different makes and models. So if I have a shop that has an employment issue or a staffing issue, it's easier to pull from that pool to keep the business open, the doors running. And of course, in typical Jami fashion, I got to pick the most clunkiest brand out there, that it has inherent issues. And I say that from a place of love, but, people understand, even the guests and the customers understand the Jaguar Land Rover brand. They know what their quirks are. They know what they're dealing with. And, so to be able to go, you can't just go pull a Ford technician or a Honda technician to come over and work on Jaguar or Land Rover. I mean, that's a pretty tall, task to ask.
What's interesting, you brought up about the parts issue, right? And look, the aftermarket sells a whole lot more brake rotors than the OEMs do. And all of these jobs, as you said, are nationwide warranty. I started early in my career at Meijer.
Mm-hmm.
And with a lifetime warranty, these people were coming back time after time after time. They wouldn't even consider going to the dealer because the warranty to them was not as good. And as you said, people move across the country or they're traveling. You've got a warranty wherever you go. And not just that, your hands aren't as tied.
Correct.
If I need a set of, BP 1080s, Bendix brake pad number, I can get it from just about any supplier, right? Whereas if I'm in a dealership, I have to get it from my supplier, which may or may not be in stock, right? I like both worlds. And it's like the leather cloth argument, right? It all depends on what you prefer, right? But since I started in the aftermarket, I have a sweet spot for that. And I like it when people try different things, they discover really what their true passion is, and that's what they hone in on. So I give you a lot of credit for making the leap.
Well, and it's not only that. I mean, you learn when you've been in the aftermarket world as long as I have, and you start learning the different quirks of the different types of vehicles. We become smarter with how we do those parts. Just because we're aftermarket doesn't mean we put always aftermarket on. The last thing I'm going to do is have a technician tear down the 3.3 Toyota intake to do a knock sensor and a harness and put a standard harness on that, or knock sensor, because the specs and the ohms are just that much different that it still is going to create problems. I mean, we learn where we need to deal, in the dealership parts, and, to keep ourselves out of trouble, but also, no disrespect, but we also know what to work on and what not to. We know what we can take back. We can just, say, look, I'm sorry, this one's got to go to the dealer. And that's becoming that double-edged sword, because a lot of these newer manufacturers are making everything so proprietary. Even the Nissan tune-ups anymore, you got to be really careful with the fuel system cleans, and all of that. And so when they're making it proprietary and they're having to take it there, for whatever the software or whatnot, but they're not delivering that experience, it's just, it's creating that same cycle of an unsatisfied customer. And I still firmly, I've said this many times and I believe it, we're an industry of one. We got to stop this us against them. That's not what the guest sees. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a dealership mechanic, technician, or an aftermarket, technician, or if you're a service department manager or a regional manager of multiple locations. If we're not meeting the guest experience together and working together to form the partnerships, we're all going to look bad. We're only going to be as good as perceived as our worst ran dealership or our best ran independent, or vice versa.
And the way the consumer sees it, it's really one. The guy or gal that's responsible for fixing my car.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, one experience bad shines badly on everybody. Let me get to a couple of comments here. I don't want to get too far behind. Let's see. Tony says, I'm going on. Oh, I caught that one before. Robert Allen Carvel, is the aftermarket better than the dealership? What says you? I think you did, right? It's not that it's better or worse. It's just different.
Correct. It's different. And, in the aftermarket, I think one of the biggest advantages working on the aftermarket side is we don't have deep pockets like a dealership has, so we're forced as whether we're general managers, regional managers, owners, we're forced to really be in the business. We're close, we're touching the business, we're seeing the disconnect sooner. And, we're in the dealership side. And again, I don't pretend to be an expert, please don't take it that way. But I've seen, and I from talking with other people way before I went in, the dealership side just likes to throw money at and people to try to solve problems. But a lot of times what they're doing is they're just adding good people to the continued chaos. And so they're losing talent because they're not seeing that sometimes we all have to roll up our sleeves and just kind of get dirty and get in the trenches together if we're truly going to fix something.
Now, starting right in the beginning, all right, let's talk about before they even come in, the ease of appointment thing, why it's sometimes harder to get a spot at the dealership than it is in the aftermarket. Now, I'll share my side of things. When the aftermarket shops that I ran, we didn't work by appointment for the most part, unless it was a drop off for the day appointment. Okay. And I was working with a crew that, come summertime, young guys, they like to go out and they don't always show up the next morning. So I'd open the door and I would have a parking lot full of cars. Everybody wants to be first. And before half the crew came in, they're already asking me, how long before I'm out of here? And I haven't even put the first car on the lift yet, So the appointment thing on the aftermarket was one where people expect to come in and kind of first come, first serve type of thing. All right. Or unless you can, I would work people in sometimes if they had an emergency. Whereas at the dealer, you've got to book your appointment for the most part. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's so structured that what I see out in the field is the stores that don't book a lot of appointments and have a lot of people that just show up, there's a lot of mayhem. Okay, because it's problematic to manage all those people that just kind of show up. So you don't know what your capacity is for that day because you don't know what half the work is that's coming in that just kind of bounced in on you, right? And other times you've got people that are booking a month out. I hate to tell you, but if I have to wait a month to come service at your store, you're not going to see me. Not in a month, probably not ever after that, What's been your experience with the appointment / no appointment thing?
Well, my experience been obviously is a little bit, heightened because I walked into a location that had, quite a bit of backlog. So it kind of, it really hampered, the ability to, to be creative with the appointments. But one thing that was really important to me up front was one thing that I noticed, and again, in my location is, everybody, the scheduler was just allowing all the waiting. It didn't matter if it was an oil change. It didn't matter if it was diagnostic. So I think in the dealership world, again, I think it comes back to having so many different people, it becomes like the old fashioned game of telephone. You can message here, and then by the time it gets here, it's a whole different story than what you're messaging. So what I had to do was I had to help with, have them understand the scheduling. If it's a diagnostic other than a basic battery check or, something with the service, they need to drop it and leave it with us. We can give them a ride home. We can, give them a loaner car, whatever it is for the convenience, because, the guests require the convenience. But I think that to your point with the aftermarket side of thing, a schedule is kind of like a guideline in the aftermarket world, but you cannot rely on a schedule. The schedule can be all over the board. And if you firmly believe that all of those appointments are going to come in that day, you'll work yourself outside of business. Yeah. It's just come on down. Can you leave it with me? Yes, we can get you done today. So I think the messaging and the structure of the scheduling, and I think that goes down to, again, with the disconnected people, where my managers, back home, they did the scheduling, or, my advisors did the scheduling, and they had more knowledge of, what vehicles take and, what the diagnostic procedure is like. But when you get people on the phone that don't have that kind of knowledge, and if you don't have the time or willing to invest the time to train them to understand that, you're just starting the experience off with chaos and unsatisfied guests.
I used to like the flexibility of the way I ran the shop, because there were always those people that would come in on an emergency, and I'll never forget. And some of the techs used to curse me for it, but they really understood after the fact that I'd have a car come in. The guy said, "Look, I'm going out of town. I forgot to get my oil changed. I kind of need it done." I'd say, "How much time do you have?" So I have like 30 minutes. Give me your keys, right? I go out to the shop. I have a car left. It's a $1,600 brake job. I tell the mechanic, put the wheels on it, roll it outside. I need to get this car in for an LOF. Mm-hmm. And the tech would go BS on me. So are you kidding me? You're taking this job off? Yes, this job is left. We're waiting for some parts. This customer has an immediate need now. Guess what? 20 minutes later, I'm handing him the keys, and we're doing the paperwork, and they're on their way. So those are the people that end up coming back for their $1,600 jobs.
Correct. Or when you're messaging it properly, and you're understanding who can leave their vehicle and, for the day.
Yeah.
How many times does that emergency oil change turn into another $1,600 brake job? And so now you've gone $3,200 in. You're going to be able to take care of both guests.
Yeah.
Keep them satisfied. You're going to have the review and you're going to have the retention. And I think in the dealership side, one of the hardest things that I had to deal with is anymore with technician shortages and everything else, we don't have the luxury to just work on one vehicle from start to finish. And so being able to keep that efficiency flowing, but also making sure that you're hearing and understanding their frustrations and come to a common ground to where they can see everybody's making more money and we're still, guest satisfaction.
And the funny part is, if the guest is happy, everybody makes more money. It's really simple. I'm going to share my favorite aftermarket television commercial. For those that have seen it already 100 times, my apologies. But for those that haven't, for me, it's new every time. This is a customer that was so happy, said he was going to write a letter that was going to make a difference. And I'm thinking, yeah, sure, it will. Well, it turns out this cat was right. Let's check this out.
Dear Meijer, one morning, I noticed my car was pulling, so I took it to a tire store for an alignment. And after 3 separate attempts, they couldn't get it right. I went to Midas for help. Your manager,
hi, I'm Paul Meijer,
and his staff spent all the time necessary to identify and correct the alignment. Paul said,
we don't want you to leave until you're extremely happy.
Which I am. Sincerely, Anthony Nista.
So to all the people that thought that the customer experience is only important now, or now it's important, guess what? It was important way back then. It's never not been important. Now, so we talked about the flexibility in scheduling and being able to accommodate customers because we typically don't have a backlog of work that needs to be done. So we have a little bit more flexibility. Okay. And that brings us to capacity management, right? Which ties into, am I backed up for a month or am I able to get them in right away? So those are things that the aftermarket typically doesn't have much of a problem with. And I think also in relationship building, when you go into a dealership, you meet the advisor. If you're lucky, you meet them in the drive, but quite often you're meeting a porter in the drive. And then that porter is bringing you in to meet with the advisor, right? Whereas in the aftermarket, you're meeting with the people oftentimes that are going to be working on your car. All of my technicians knew just about all of the customers by first and last name and vice versa. And when they came in, it was like they were coming to see a friend. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, and capacity issue is such a slippery slope because I think that we use it. I don't care if it's the aftermarket or, the dealership side. I think capacity is something that we use as a crutch. And I think if we were honest with ourselves, me included, many times we really can't determine if we're truly at capacity when we don't have our other, areas in line, because capacity and efficiency and process and all of that play a huge role to understand that, but capacity management to me is, again, it goes back down to the messaging, what you can leave here. Let's get the diagnostics dropped off in the morning. Let's focus on, setting those appointments for the drop off in the morning, so when the technicians come in, they can be working on diagnosing what I call the snowball of work, and then once we get those diagnosed, because that's the time they get them diagnosed, we can get them, in line. We can start doing our quoting and our estimating. They can go back into, previous in process work. And then, so when they're backing out one vehicle, there's another one to bring in. But I think in what directly plays into the capacity struggle is we don't listen to our technicians enough. And, and so,
Say that again. Say that again.
We don't listen to our technicians enough. I read a comment the other day that that really resonated with me. And in fact, I did a post on it today where this gentleman had said, rarely do you hear a technician speak in absolutes, but the front end almost always does. And that was so true to me, and so we create our own capacity issues because we're either not being truthful with the guests of how long this is going to take, we're not being reasonable with them, and we're not listening to our technicians. When a technician comes up and says, hey, we need to start here, we get uncomfortable up front because starting here means $1,800, but this is where we have to start. And then the guest's like, okay, well, gosh, that's a lot of money. Is this going to fix my vehicle? And we all know, we hear this many times. Oh yeah, this is going to fix your vehicle. And then the advisor or the manager sit here like this, praying that this is going to fix the vehicle. And that's when the technician comes back up and says, okay, now we got to go here. And, it's so unfair to the technicians. It's unfair because they're the ones that are trying to keep us out of trouble. If we listen to the story, they're going to tell us what to do, what to say, paint the story. But then we go, now you got to fix it. And so
100%.
They're losing hours, they're losing time, we're losing gross profit, our effective labor rate, our efficiencies went to hell.
CSI,
Google reviews, everything is gone because we are too uncomfortable with being able to message what is needed. We didn't break the vehicles. We did not do that. We can be empathetic, we can be compassionate, but we have to present accurately and precisely, and we have to give options. Guests love options. And then by doing so, your whole crew becomes happier and they work together.
That is so on point what you said there, because just like sometimes an advisor will pencil whip an estimate, they also pencil whip the time expectation. If the technician says, look, I need another 2 hours on this, it's like they're afraid to tell the customer that they need another 2 hours to start, right? Mm-hmm. So they set some unrealistic expectation that can't be met, and then they kind of hide when that time comes because they don't want the customer mad at them. But the reality is somebody needs to take ownership of the communication, right?
Well, it's not only the communication, we have a duty as leaders to keep everybody successful. And if you're not taking the time to understand the team and understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses, then you can't truly form the checks and balance type system. Amen. We have to see through each other's eyes. We got to walk in each other's shoes. But we also have a duty to put people in charge or in positions to keep them going. Maybe that 2 hours extra that technician needs was the dispatcher, the advisors, or the manager's fault because they knew this guest needed their vehicle, but they did not dispatch it properly to the most, capable technician. And until we fix that, I don't care if we're dealer or independent, we're going to still be, creating the cycle.
And it happens daily. I want to get to a couple of comments because we're a little behind on the comments. Linda Hansen, better late than ever. LinkedIn not working for me tonight on my iPad. I'm glad you're here, Linda. Thank you for supporting the show every week. I really appreciate it. Tony Owens, I managed a dealership that lost their franchise and went aftermarket. It's totally different ball game. Wow. That's crazy. I've heard of franchises being yanked, but then usually it's somebody else that comes in, and maybe a straw dealer that quote unquote doesn't really own the store anymore, but somehow remains active behind the scenes. I'm not going to mention any names. Tony Owens says, absolutely, Jamie. It's the relationship experience. And Nathan says, and the customer is going to notice that you aren't working together. Oh my God, this is so on point. The customer can smell dissension in the ranks. You smell that? I love the smell of dissension in the morning. They can smell it. It takes them 2 seconds to see what's going on. So when we think we're hiding something, we're really not.
That's so
Really
true. I
not.
mean, that's when you start hearing things slam in the shop, or you see the eye rolls up at the front counter, and that is very on point. I mean, this industry for years we didn't pay attention enough that our guests were paying attention to us, and that's kind of why we're in some of this trouble that we are, as an industry whole today, because we were so caught up in the excitement and the instant gratification and everything else that we weren't using our downtime wisely.
And to Nathan's point, appointments are good to set, but they're a double-edged sword. Now, my feeling is there is no one right way to do anything or everything. There isn't, because no two stores are exactly the same. I have friends that run 100% appointment that kill it. And I have other friends that have a large number of walk-ins that kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Early, when we first started this, you said the aftermarket stores don't necessarily have the budgets or the tooling that the dealers do. But I had a very interesting observation last week. Or not last week, 2 weeks ago. I was in store, and this is a store that's crushing it in service. Okay. They are a leader in the market. Yet I'm looking around, and I'm a big believer in leveraging technology. And I'm looking around, and I don't see any technology. I don't see any drive technology whatsoever. So I start talking. I'm talking with the fixed ops director for the group. And I said, I have an interesting observation here. I don't see any technology in the drive. And he says, that's right. He says, we believe in the people with a strong process and holding them accountable to do their job. And with that, we're talking about a very high volume repair center that's high in CSI, that's high in profitability, that's high in rank. So I love engaging in different conversations with you, with others, with people in store on all sides of the equation, because there is never just one right way, right?
No, there isn't. But to that point, I mean, even with, holding the people accountable, I'm a firm believer of the technology. I think that, having the technology from the start is setting the expectation of transparency to our guests. When they see that we're taking the time, to do the walk around and, to touch their tires, to touch their wiper blades, to notice and take a picture before they turn off the, car in the drive or in the lot that, the driver's side headlight is out. I think that for me, I think that's setting that transparency up front, and it's setting that expectation for the guests that we have nothing to hide, that we're going to take videos, we're going to take pictures, we're going to show you why this needs, what it needs, because we forget that so few of the repairs that we do on guest vehicles can they actually see and touch. And so when they start questioning how we missed, when a technician does a tire tread depth and they're, 4:30 or 6:30 seconds on the outside, and then they're back a week later for vibration because he didn't check the whole tire and they're bald on the inside. It's stuff like that gets us in trouble. And when they can see that, they question every ounce of what we do.
Simple tool, right?
Yep. Now,
Reed's got an interesting comment here. Reed says, if you're driving a new car or something under warranty, the advisor all get busy, hence the 70% of the customers that leave the dealer after 30,000 miles and the 36.99 that still own their car with over 100,000 miles, only 300 still service with the dealership. I think that's our own doing,
Absolutely.
right? I think that's our own doing.
Well, just my short stint, talking, just the struggle with warranty and, keeping everybody not frustrated with the warranty process, and I think that that's something that creates a lot of tension within the dealerships. It creates a lot of tension with the advisors. It creates a lot of tension with the technicians. I have a little bit different way of viewing it. When I was looking at, the kind of volume we were doing in warranty work and the car count, because I tell you what, you coming from the aftermarket world, we kill for that kind of car count in our world. Kill for that kind of car count, and so I think that, where in the dealership side, we could do better and be better at bridging those gaps with the warranties and understanding, that it is still a big piece of the business and it is still a big piece of their paychecks. And, instead of being frustrated with, the warranties, let's look at the mileage base. Are they due for a service? Are they due for, tires? Are they due for something? The more we can do that, because not only are we saying, hey, the manufacturer is standing behind your vehicle, but while it's here for this inconvenience, we can take care of this service, so you're not having to come back here in another 500 miles, or whatnot. So even though I can understand the frustration, I definitely can understand both sides of the fence. And from a purely business and analytical standpoint, there is a need for that warranty work, because the dealerships, with the current issues and stigmas that they've had recently, if they didn't have that warranty work, they would be in a whole lot more trouble, in my opinion.
And that is a correct opinion. Okay. Many OEMs are happy with the warranty work because it keeps the customer coming back. All right. Now, the reason why there's so much defection, and this is not me, this is a Cox Automotive study, is perceived convenience, trust, right? The customers think that every time I go to the dealership, they try to sell me a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a reason why they feel that way. There was a post the other day, and you took a stab at it, and you were within inches of it, okay, about the dealership not doing proper walk around or doing proper walk around. Some do it well, some do it just to check the box, okay? Here's my simple observation on dealer versus aftermarket. If the only time you're going to talk to a customer is when they need a bunch of stuff and it's $2,000 or more, you haven't gained any trust, because things like tires and brakes, they don't feel any different to the customer when they're new or when they're worn out, sans being metal on metal grinding. Okay. So when you call them up and you're all excited because that car that came in for the oil change that the technician says needs brakes and needs tires that the customer had no idea about, because you've never had a tire conversation with the customer since day one, and you call them up and you tell them, hey, you need to spend $2,500 today. Here's the customer on the phone. In the meantime, the coworker's going, what's wrong? It's my dealer. They're on the phone. They're telling me my car needs $2,500 worth of work. I need brakes. I need tires. I need all kinds of stuff. Were you having any trouble with them? Well, no. You know what? Tell them to just do the oil change. And my friend Billy works over at the aftermarket shop down the street. Go to him on the weekend. Have him check it out for you. He'll give you the straight scoop, right? As opposed to the first time a customer should be made aware that you're in the tire business is when the salesperson's walking them through as part of trying to sell them a car. Hey, I want to introduce you to Billy Bob, our service manager here, or Sandra, our service manager. And here's Fred. Hey, thanks for considering our car. And then talk about what you do, how you offer a complimentary, multi-point inspection, how you look at brakes, how you look at tires every time. So when they come in, you can tell them 6-7 times, hey, your tires are in great shape. You don't need anything. Your brakes are in great shape. You don't need anything. That builds the trust so that at some point down the road, when they do need it, and you tell them, or you tell them ahead of time, hey, next time you'll probably need it, they're going to trust you. They're not even going to think to go to the aftermarket.
Absolutely. But I also believe that that's an industry-wide struggle. And I think that it falls on us. It falls on us as leaders, and it falls on us as trainers, because the dealership side was genius with the red, yellow, green check mark system, right? That everybody's adopted. And where we get ourselves in trouble with this is, for one technician, maybe that's not something that they would present, but maybe for another technician that they would. And so where we get ourselves in trouble is, we're not only that, but we're not setting them up. We're not using the categories. We're not letting them know when they come in for that oil change, you know, hey, your brakes are down to 4 millimeters. So here's a quote. This is roughly, you know, prices may change between when you need them next. You know, this is coming due. Or when a guest comes in for an oil change and they're due for spark plugs by factory mile, and we put it in the needs attention now, and the guest is thinking, I have no check engine light, my car's running fine. You know, so, you know, and so one of my biggest pet peeves is when, you know, you've got a guest that comes in 5, 6, 7 times, they're being told their vehicle is perfect. And then you get that new technician who does the process, follows the process, listens to how it is. And then all of a sudden they need $7,000 work. That's not the technician's fault. That's our fault as leaders, because we are not enforcing a structured, streamlined, expected process that our guests demand. And we lose. It doesn't matter how many videos or pictures you take. When you do that first great inspection, you better do them great all the other times, because if they come in again and they don't get it, or they get that technician that says their tires are fine, but we told them last time they were half life, it just makes us look like we don't know what we're doing. And so again, I don't think that that's a team issue. That is purely a management and training issue, in my opinion.
The fish thinks from the head. It's one of my favorite old Italian sayings. Now, I've got an interesting comment here from Steve DiMarzio. And Steve says, how do you deal with aftermarket parts that are junk or counterfeit? Now, I'd like you to take that first, and I have a follow-up to it.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that we could battle, you know, that question, and we could spin it. What do we do with a manufacturer that knows that it has a genuine issue and they do not do anything to upgrade or you know, fix the design? So I think that that's a risk that you take. But when you have knowledge, and, you know, specifically me, you know, you can't BS a BSer. I started in parts. I understand where the parts are. But if we really want to look at parts, you know, you can take a standard box, you can take an Eklund box, read the fine print. They're made at the very same address. You know, so a lot of it is smokes and mirrors and packaging and made to look prettier or sound to, you know, made to sound like they're smarter. But I think that, you know, in the aftermarket side, that we get ourselves in trouble when we use the cheapest, you know, when we use the True Stop brake pads, or we use the $18 semi-metallic squeaking, you know, brake pads. I think that that's a bad business decision. And I think that we need to understand that when we sell values of nationwide warranty, and, you know, we'll tow you from the side of the road if there's an issue, we also need to message that we're using quality parts. You know, we're not a nonprofit business. We do have markup in our industry. Absolutely we do, because we have a duty to be profitable, because if we're not profitable, then it's almost just like being unethical, because we can't stand behind the value of our services and take care of our guests should an issue arise.
Bam. In all my years in automotive, in service, I have never, and I do mean never, run across a junk or counterfeit part. I've never seen it. Now, I never worked for XYZ Shady Tree Garage, so I'm not saying it doesn't happen. In the aftermarket that I'm talking about the Meinekes, the Midas, the Goodyears, the Firestones, the Pep Boys. I'm talking about chains of stores. Okay, in the heyday of Midas, there were 1,800 stores in their group of stores that I was a part of. Okay, that's the aftermarket that I'm talking about. The independent garage that maybe fly by night. I agree with you, Steve. It's very possible. And I might even go on a limb and say probable if some of these guys are only in it for the money. But I would tend to think that any licensed garage, which is at the scrutiny at the Department of Motor Vehicles in any given state, to lose their license to do business or get sued for millions of dollars, I don't know what the data is. I would welcome seeing data on that, but I'm not familiar with what the data is because I haven't had experience with it. But it's a great point. You know what? After the show, I'm actually going to look that up because now you've got me curious. You know, that's one of the many things I love about doing this show is that there are things that I run across that I may not be familiar with, but then I make it my business to find out. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to put it into ChatGPT, who will give me a very direct and quick answer on that. Greg Settle says, great discussion. I'm hearing many valid points. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it, man. Nathan Williams says, if you're a dealership, you should have an excellent general knowledge of the product you deal with. I think that's pretty much any business. Otherwise, you're not going to be in business. And Reed Richards says, how about an alignment windshield wipers, tires, detail? What do you mean? Explain that, Reed.
Like a package.
As a package. Well, as a package indicates that you're going to sell somebody something they may or may not need. I'm not for that. I'm all for doing the inspection, but not everything would be needed each time. Like my car's going to go in for the 36K service on Thursday. Okay. And part of that service includes replacing the cabin filter. Well, I proactively replaced the cabin filter at 28,542 miles because I'm that nut job that believes in fresh air. So we do it early. So that won't be needed this time, but I'll be doing it again early the next time it does come up. So yeah, I'm all for the total inspections, Reed, but not necessarily to package it as a sale. Nathan Williams says they call it due diligence for a reason. Oh, God. Nathan, I got to give you major props, man. You come up with some on-point stuff.
Well, I think to your point, Paul, too, one thing that I've never gotten wrapped up in is I don't like to, we need to sell more air filters or we need to sell more wiper blades. What we need is a consistent process and a consistent inspection, and we need to focus on jobs per ticket and what the vehicle needs, because not everybody's going to need, to your point, a cabin air filter, and many times when you start going down that rabbit hole, you're selling a ton of cabin air filters and we're missing the cords showing in the tires. We're missing serious safety issues, coolant leaks, oil leaks and stuff. I don't believe in that. I believe that we should sell what the vehicle or present total health of the vehicle and give the guests options, and so they're informed of what they actually need, not what we're, trying to spiff or any of that.
Because if you do a consistent inspection, right? So we may not have the tooling in the aftermarket, but what we have is the best part of all. We have the people. And we have a process that we can train our people on, and we can hold ourselves accountable first to make sure that they do their jobs. When I walked into this dealership and I know what their numbers are because I see them, and I see that the only technology they have in the drive is a person, a tire depth checker, and a solid multi-point inspection process. You don't need the fancy tools, right? We have one job, whether it's aftermarket or dealer, and that's getting that customer to trust us to the point where they believe in their head and in their heart that we are always looking out for the safety and performance of their vehicle, regardless of if it's a $20 job or a $20,000 job. It shouldn't really matter. I have customers that call me today on my cell phone that I met decades ago that I have become friends with. And they call me first to find out, what should I do? I had a blowout. I had an accident. My car finally died that you sold me 12 years ago. Do you know a guy? Do you know a gal? Right? That's our only job, whether you're in a dealership or in the aftermarket. Okay. And we mistakenly think that it's always about the price, right? We pencil whip an estimate in the dealership because we're afraid to offer the customer what they really need. We think the customer thinks it's all about the price. Well, it's not. Here, this is right from a customer, and this is what she had to say about price, value, and convenience. Check this out.
There's nothing in automotive that doesn't take a long time at all.
That's actually not true. I just had an experience where I was at a quick lube oil change, and it only took me 15 minutes. I didn't even have to get out of my car. So I spent a little extra money for the convenience factor, and I would do it time and time again.
58% of consumers will spend more money and drive further for a better experience. Right? So there are definite differences between aftermarket and dealership, but there really doesn't have to be. You know, we have layers at the dealership. There's a wall between where your car gets repaired and where you check in. There's a big wall there. Okay, at my dealer, Premier Subaru in Brantford, Connecticut, they have a large wall between the waiting area and the shop. You know what that wall is made of?
Glass.
Glass. It is a giant glass wall. You could see everything that's going on inside the shop. Everything. So if you're a dealership and you can open up the wall, it's in your best interest. If you're an aftermarket shop, you don't have that wall. What you have is, hey, Bob, come here. Let me show you what's wrong with your car. You have Bob under the lift showing them exactly, here's the brake caliper. Here's the pin that's broken. Here's the broken coil spring. Here's this, here's that. So yes, you have certain advantages in the aftermarket, but you really have certain advantages at the dealership as well, because you have facilities that are state of the art. If we can only translate the customer service experience skills of the aftermarket into the dealership world, you know, if you want to build a business and crush, and I do mean crush, every single solitary repair facility, dealership, what have you, here's what you do. You build an aftermarket shop that's 20 bays with a service drive like they have at a dealership. And you implement process. You have somebody run it that has experience in customer experience, and you will crush everybody in your market.
Yeah, the biggest thing is you know, when you come from a world where you're not used to telling the guests no, and you're put in positions to not be able to meet that commitment, it's a very tough challenge to overcome. Because for me, when telling a guest no is like nails on the chalkboard, you know, and we spend too much time finding reasons to say no when we have many opportunities to say yes.
You know, it's funny. Nathan said here, I meant to say due diligence. Sorry for the typo there, but that's kind of a Freudian slip, because due diligence is applicable. There was a dealership in New Jersey where they did not implement process, okay? A customer came through the shop. The car needed tires. They were not made aware that they needed the tires. That customer had a tragic accident. and the dealership paid, I believe it was over $1 million in settlement. So sue diligent. Yeah, we need to practice sue diligency, because if we don't do those proper inspections, we may in fact get sued because we're exposing ourselves to more liability.
Well, not only that, I mean, look at how much headaches we create ourselves because we don't take the time to do the proper inspection. So we're not documenting pre-existing conditions. So how many times do you have all your bays full? It's a day that you're super busy, phone won't quit ringing, you got walk-ins, and then you've got the guest that comes in who's accusing us of breaking something that was already broke before, but we didn't do our diligence of documenting it and presenting it. And so it puts us in that position of, we've got to stop what we're doing, get this car back on the rack. But when you have a reference point to go back and say, hey, we did talk about this, you declined doing it, I can absolutely help you. Drop it with me. I will have an answer by the end of the day. It totally, it changes the whole conversation and the flow of everything.
I've got a good comment here from Eric Smith. Listen to the recent car dealership guy interview with the Subaru guy. This exact focus on customer experience. Okay, going back to the post about the walk around. There are two reasons to do a walk around. Customer sees it as one reason, the dealership sees it as another reason. Okay, the reason for a walk around, dealerships see it as cut policy. That's why we do a walk around. That's why we don't involve the customer in the walk around. But what kind of message do you think it sends to the customer when they come in, you tell them go over to the desk, and here's a guy or a gal going around the car taking pictures of every panel on the car? Is it possible that customer might think, wow, these people think I'm such a dirtbag that I'm going to try to slip something in on them. They're taking pictures of my car so I don't come back to them later and say that dent wasn't there. You think that might go through somebody's head?
Well, that's the problem statement right there. That walk around and video walk around should be done with the guests there. You should be engaging with the guests. You should be having relevant conversations. It's not just to document that. You can take the quick pictures of the scratch. Like I said, it's touching the tires, seeing the customer, having you touch the tires, touch the wiper blades, see the light bulb. That's the problem, because that was a perfect way to describe how the dealership experience was for me. Again, it was just having everything separated, where if we can come together as one and that guest is just as involved in that check-in process as they are in the checkout process, and quit going through all these extra steps, it would be a miracle what we could achieve. Because people are understanding. They understand things happen. They understand that people get busy, but what they don't understand is not being able to communicate it and to be able to follow up. Hey, I have no news right now. I'm sorry, but I promised you I would call you. I would let you know. I wish this fixed it. It didn't. This is the next step. And that's where we're getting ourselves in trouble. Kick down the walls. It's time to tear them down.
Yeah. They can understand you being honest with them, because if you've started the relationship off right to begin with by showing them what's in it for them to come to us for servicing, and then delivering on that promise each step of the way, the customer goes over the curb with their new car, the first thing they get in their email inbox is a welcome to the XYZ dealership family. We value your business. Here again is your service team that you met earlier, and we just want to give you a rundown of what to expect the first time you come in. So you have a drone flying through the parking lot into the bay where the car is going to go. This is where you're going to come. You're going to drive here, you're going to pull in here, you're going to pull up to the front, and you're going to just wait in your car. Within 30 to 45 seconds, a service advisor will greet you at your car to address your concerns and check you in and go over the car with you to check things like wiper blades we forget to check. If it's always sunny when I come in, I may have forgotten that 3 weeks ago I was pissed off because it was raining and my wipers were streaking. I'm not going to remember that. My life is too busy. So if we do that, and we check the tires with them, okay? Every time, then the customers, wow, how cool is that? They're sending me a what to expect the first time I come in for service. And guess what? The first time they come in for service, as their reminder, service reminder, which is a text, a call, and an email, guess what? Where to go, what's going to happen, what to expect. So as they drive in, now they've been explained 2 or 3 times before they even pull in. And when they pull in and you deliver on that promise, wow, this is what they said was going to happen. This is what happened. Wow, I love this place.
Absolutely. They choose to do business with us, and whether we make it consciously or subconsciously, we choose whether or not we retain them. I mean, it's as simple as that.
With that ending, that is perfect. Thank you so much, Jami. I always love talking shop with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To those watch it weekly, thank you. To those that watch it on the replay, thank you. I appreciate the support. If you see anyone that would value from this conversation, by all means, do share it with them. I know I am, and I'm sure Jami is also open to connecting with like-minded professionals. If we can enhance your business or you can enhance ours, by all means, we'd love to connect. So with that, I wish you a safe and successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Don't go away, Jami.
Have a great night.